Hello everyone, and welcome to Lancelot's Nerd Corner, where I'm proud to present another 6-scale figure review. Today we'll be taking a look at Knightmare Flash by Flashpoint Studio, and I'm really excited to share my thoughts on it with you. Now, this is a third-party unlicensed figure, so it's officially titled and marketed as Doomsday Lightning Man, but the likeness, suit, and inspiration is clearly from the nightmare scenes in Zack Snyder's Justice League. Starting off with the box, the front features a photo of the figure from the back with his visor down, and is tinted with various shades of red, and has nice accents of black paint splatters / scratches. The name of the figure is front and center, with the company name and logo below it. The artwork from the front wraps over to each side of the box, while the top and bottom both feature the Flashpoint Studio logo. Lastly, the back of the box has another image of the figure with lightning effects around it, and the usual warnings that you can expect. I always like to start with the good things first, so I want to first cover what I think is the best thing about this figure, the head sculpt. Now obviously this is a helmeted head sculpt, and you can't remove it, nor does it come with a non-helmeted head sculpt, but I think this is perfectly fine. The helmet itself has tons of details all around, from the jawline and chin, to the earmuff looking pieces on the side, and all the way to the back, and the overall sculpt work is magnificent. It's painted very well in a gray gunmetal, but the finishing is what makes this great, with lots of weathering, dirt, and scratches all around the helmet. It really looks like he's been running around an apocalyptic world at hundreds of miles an hour. One of the best things about the head sculpt is that it's on a magnetic attachment, and we always love to see that because it allows the head complete range of motion on every axis and plane. Another cool thing is that it comes with two visors, one silver, which more closely matches the color of the helmet, and one that's tinted red, which is the more screen-accurate option. The visors have small magnets on the sides where they connect to the helmet, and they can be posed up, but it's not a very smooth motion, so be careful about scratching the paint. Another small issue is that you can't get the visor posed up as high as in the film, you can only comfortably have it up around here. And thirdly, in the film, the bottom of the helmet actually opens up as well, which you're unable to do with this figure. I don't think it's a huge deal, but I also think it was a missed opportunity for Flashpoint Studio to show off some awesome engineering. Speaking of having the helmet opened up, there is a head sculpt of Ezra Miller as Barry Allen encased inside the helmet, just as we see in the film. The paint app adds enough skin texturing, and the likeness is quite good, but at the same time it's hard to tell exactly because so much of the face is covered by the helmet and his flash mask. But I think the likeness is good enough that you'll be able to sell this for a good price down the line, because who knows, the next time we see an Ezra Miller figure, it may be in a prison outfit. Moving on to the figure itself, and I actually think the back is a great place to start because it's quite the work of art. It's a single large piece of diecast armor, but multi-layered with an asymmetric pattern of metal plates. It's painted and weathered masterfully with lots of dents, scratches, and areas where the paint is intentionally faded. You can also see where each shoulder piece connects to the back via the straps and is asymmetric as well, with the left attachment being higher than the right. And they use different materials, with the left one being made out of pleather and the right one a silver rubber strap. By far the best thing about the back though is the die-cast metallic spine, which goes from the nape and inserts underneath the armor, giving the figure a cool exoskeleton look from the back. Now let's get the figure front and center and take a closer look at the whole suit. First thing that needs to be said is that the design is simply stunning, and it looks just as cool in hand as the promo photos. The shapes and sculpts of all the individual armor pieces are superb and almost entirely screen accurate, and all made out of die-cast, which is cool but comes with quite a few problems that I'll talk about later. Just like the head sculpt and back, all the armor pieces are painted and weathered appropriately, with dents, scratches, and patches of faded paint to really make this character come to life. I will say though, the colors are a little bit off. Most of the armor on this figure is painted a deep red, whereas in the film the costume has a lot more areas that are black, like the sides of the chest piece. But just like in the film, the overall design looks like patchwork, and the visual motif is asymmetry. And when I say the armor is asymmetric, I mean completely asymmetric. It would take me a real long while to describe and go over each individual armor piece, and I don't think y'all have that kind of time, so just trust me when I say that each one, from the shoulders, to the chest piece, to the thighs, and down to the shin guards, are all sculpted differently in their own unique way. The hands also maintain the visual motif with different designs for the left and right. The left is just the weathered red glove, but with a brown strap sculpted around it, and the right has a silver metal plate on the back of the glove with metal on the knuckles. Even pieces as small as the elbow pads are different, and although the knee pads are the same shape, the right one is painted darker than the left. The only two parts that are symmetrical are the extremes, meaning the head sculpt and the boots. I think whether the look of this figure will appeal to you or not is up to your personal preference, but I think the design looks great and it really makes this figure stand out in my display. And I also do really appreciate the amount of work and effort the designers must have put into sculpting and painting each unique piece. Underneath the armor is a two-tone rubbery undersuit, colored black and a shade of red that's a bit brighter than the armor. It's stretchy and a bit squishy, so the figure actually has a bit of a nice tactile feel. The chest armor should have extended down to the lower ab area as in the film, but Flashpoint Studio decided to integrate this area into the undersuit, which I think is a great choice because it allows more freedom for the torso to articulate. They also included a simple black rubber belt around the waist, which can be adjusted slightly if needed. The last design element I want to go over is the defining so-called cherry on top, and that's the bright yellow Flash symbol in the center of his chest. It's flanked on the top and bottom by two pleather straps that go across the chest, which serve to subtly frame the symbol. And unlike the rest of the suit, it has almost no weathering, and I actually really like that, because I love the idea that if there's one part of his armor that he makes sure is clean, it's that bright yellow symbol. Because no matter how bleak the world looks, no matter how bad things get, he'll always be there to save someone in a flash. Now that we've gone over the good things about the figure, it's time to tackle the bad. And unfortunately, there's quite a bit. You may have noticed already that the figure has these thin pleather straps around some of the armor, and although they do provide nice accents, they're more of a hassle than anything. None of them are glued or stuck to the armor or undersuit, so they become very slippery and finicky when handling the figure. The left forearm strap in particular is rather loose, and the bottom chest strap makes me very worried because of how strained it gets when articulating the left arm, since that's where it attaches to. And I cannot even begin to express how annoying this pleather strap on the left thigh is. It is making me lose my shit. It's so loose and slippery that it feels like every single time I pick up the figure to pose it, or even just handle it in any way, it slips down to the knees or even the ankles, and I have to pull it up to readjust it every single time. In fact, it's gotten to the point where I'm seriously considering just removing it altogether. All my further issues with the figure, I think all stem from one big issue, and can be summed up in one question. Was the diecast necessary? And a big reason why I honestly don't think it was is because of the character this figure is based on. When you think of the Flash, what's the first pose that comes to mind? Probably a running pose, right? Well, unfortunately, because of the diecast armor around the legs, it is nearly impossible to get this figure in a proper running pose, and I personally find that incredibly disappointing. The display base being just a regular crotch grabber doesn't help either. And even if you can manage to articulate the legs enough and balance the figure on the crotch grabber, the sheer weight of the diecast in combination with the rubbery undersuit naturally pulling the legs down means that the strength of the leg joints will give out pretty quick. The thigh armor doesn't seem to be glued to the undersuit, so I'm really interested to see if I can remove them to alleviate some of the weight on the legs. I also think with the level of detail in the sculpting they were able to achieve, why not just use plastic instead? Unless of course the reason why they were able to achieve such great sculpt work was because they were using diecast, although that's something that I can't really be sure of. Regardless, using plastic for the armor would have been cheaper and they wouldn't have to then drive the price of the figure up, because I honestly don't think this figure should have been more than 150 bucks. And yes, the paint app on plastic does fade faster than on diecast, but I think that would actually add to the figure's overall weathering over time. And most importantly, for me at least, plastic is a lot lighter than diecast, allowing you to get this Flash figure into an actual running pose. Speaking of posing, let's quickly go over the, unfortunately, limited articulation of this figure. But we are starting with the head though, which I already mentioned is on a magnetic attachment. So we get a complete range of motion up, down, and tilting and swiveling side to side. Both shoulder joints are on ratchets, and it'll be very useful to go by them, because an issue that I have never had with any other figure is that because they're designed with different shoulder armors, each arm actually has slightly different levels of articulation. So starting with the right arm, you can raise it laterally by 2 ratchets, but you might be able to push it to 3. You can swing it forward by 1 ratchet and swing it backward by 2. But again, you may be able to push it to 3. Now for the left, you can raise it laterally by 3 ratchets and may be able to push it to 4. It can swing forward by just about 3 ratchets and can swing backward by 2. One thing I want to emphasize is that if you are going to try and push the shoulder joints past what I've shown, please be careful. Hey everyone, Lancelot from the future here. When I was editing the video, I realized that I totally forgot to talk about 2 important parts of articulation. Number 1 is you can hinge the elbow such that you can basically touch the forearm to the bicep, which is good, but there is no swivel at the elbow or the bicep. So you basically cannot swivel the arms side to side at all, which is another reason why I'm really disappointed with the articulation. Alright, back to the video. Unpause. The torso has a good amount of crunch forward and extension backward, and can slightly swivel side to side. The legs raise up laterally around 70 degrees. Oh, never mind. The weight of the diecast pulls it down to 30. They can swing forward around 50 degrees, and yes, the unnecessary diecast weight has been taken into account. And they can swing backward around 20 degrees. The knees have a double bend that gets you past 90, and the ball joint on the ankle peg makes me very happy because it gives you full range of motion. Lastly, and sort of least of all, let's talk about the accessories. The figure comes with the 2 helmet visors that we already covered, a display base, 1 extra pair of hands, and a batarang. Yeah, you know, that classic Flash accessory, the batarang. Anyway, the display base is a standard rectangular base with a crotch grabber, and it's a bit difficult for me to show exactly, but another thing is that the material they used for this sort of art card is a bit slippery, so it's even harder for the figure to balance on the crotch grabber in a running pose, just further deepening my disappointment in this figure. For the extra hands, we don't even get a proper pair, because they aren't even the same gesture. The right hand has a grabbing/pinching gesture, and the left hand is in a relaxed position. That's right, this figure only comes with 1 relaxed hand. Not 1 pair of relaxed hands, 1 relaxed hand. Look, I don't mean to sound too harsh, because they are sculpted and painted well, but only 1 relaxed hand is just ridiculous. And lastly, we have that classic Flash accessory, the batarang, which is the exact same batarang from the Hot Toys Justice League Batman, except this one is made out of diecast. And yes, I know the Hot Toys Flash figure also comes with a batarang, but even that I felt was unnecessary for that figure. And it seems we return to that key word with this figure's problems: unnecessary, because that's what this diecast batarang is. And not only that, but the inclusion of the batarang created the unnecessary need for a grabbing/pinching hand, which could have easily been another relaxed hand. As many great things that there are about this figure, there seem to be an equal amount of bad. And I think that all my problems with this figure stem from the very thing that could probably be the main attraction for someone else: the diecast armor. Yes, they look amazing with the sculpting and painting. Yes, the overall design is stunning, but man, is this thing unnecessarily heavy, and you really can't pose it very dynamically at all. And the accessories it comes with are just not adequate for the amount they're asking for, because most of their costs went to unnecessary things. So let me put it like this. The pros and cons of this figure are so equally matched that whether or not you will see the value in it is entirely dependent on who you are as a collector and what you value in your figures. If you're someone who wants an incredibly designed and executed Knightmare Flash and doesn't mind keeping it in a museum pose, then I think you'll be happy with this release. But if you're looking for literally anything more than that out of it, I really don't think this is the figure for you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in my next video.